but I'm not necessarily trying to encourage anybody else to vote for it. I just wanted Tim to have an opportunity to have this issue voted on. Commissioner Dara, why did I say that it's a motion to draft a statement? Because I really don't care to draft a statement if I think it's going to get voted down. So I wanted to get some level of encouragement from two other people on this board before I did a fool's errand. Is that,
What do you want the board's resolution to say?
They're going to support the bill.
we support, I mean, can I take a stab at it and you tell me if I'm on the mark?
Go for it.
You want the resolution to say, in sum and substance, Aleppo Township Board of Commissioners support HR 763, back up. The Board of Commissioners of Aleppo Township believe that climate change is a serious issue, and we support HR 763 as a resolution to that issue, and we encourage our federal legislatures to vote in favor of it. That's what
Boom.
it is.
Doesn't
Which
have
is-
to be
which is
war and
very
peace, it
similar
just
to
has
the-
to be to the point.
Yeah. So, any other comments?
We can vote on it, or we can.
Only comment is that, as I recall, in the very early stages, very early pages of what Tim gave us, it's said to the fact, and I can't quote it, but that there was a steady stream of revenues coming from the carbon dividend, and that there was no part of that to top it off, or stop it, or change the rate of instant climate. I think that's fiscally not responsible, and has nothing to do with us.
Okay, any other comments? Then we'll proceed to a vote. The motion is motion for the board to draft a statement in support of HR 763.
Before you do that,
Yep, go ahead.
can you break the motion in two?
We can certainly amend it. How do you want to do that?
Well, the first part's recognizing that climate change is an issue that needs to be addressed. Might be step one. Step two is whether the proposed bill that we're talking about is the solution to the problem.
Okay, so I hear a motion from Commissioner Dara to take the main motion that's on the table now and make it into two motions. First, a motion for the board to draft a resolution stating that climate change is a problem. And second, a motion for the board to draft a statement in support of HR 763. Is that,
Well, I'm not making the second
I
motion.
know, you're just saying
We
break
ought to
the motion in half.
Split it in half.
okay? So that's a subsidiary motion of the main motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, so that motion is now seconded. So what we're voting on now is only to amend the main motion, to make it into two things. Everybody understand that? We're just voting to split the thing in two. Any other comment on that? Any comment from the audience on that? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, that motion carries. So the main motion is now amended, and it's two motions. The first motion is for the board to draft a resolution stating that climate change is a problem. The second motion is for the board to draft a statement in support of HR 763. Let's take them decently and in order. Let's start with the motion for the board to draft a resolution stating that climate change is a problem. Is there any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, let's vote on that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, that carries 5-0. Okay, Second is a motion for the board to draft a statement in support of HR 763. Is there any further comment on that?
I would just reiterate that my problem with the bill is that it puts all of the details of how the program would actually work into the future rulemaking proceeding, that we're being asked to support something that we really don't know the details of.
Okay, anybody else?
Usually when they have rulemakings, I mean, they allow you to review those and comment on them. There'll be a comment period.
Right.
I mean, we could draft a statement at that point if we had issues with portions of the rulemaking. I mean, we could vote to proceed and approve moving forward the bill subsequent, to, and then at a further date, bring another motion regarding any rulemaking that would be up for public review.
So are you, Commissioner DeBlanc, are you offering an amendment here, or are you guys sort of making a comment?
I'm making a comment that if we said we support pursuing this bill, we could further in the future come back and review any rulemaking on it and make public comment on those. Unless you think we need a new, I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it.
But if you were going to do that, you'd need to be paying attention to the Federal Register regularly.
Well, we'll just have to track it. Keep an eye on it. And Tim, you're going to track this?
Sure.
All right,
I'm not sure that alters the second motion because, as Dan pointed out, the second motion only says to draft something. So your considerations could be part of the draft that then we have to review again.
I agree. I think we're not at the risk of the foolishness that Commissioner Dara suggested. We're only at a point where we're drafting something. We're voting to draft something. We're not voting to adopt.
So we can change it to support the drafting of this legislation and just leave it open like that, right?
Well, I mean, if you pass a motion that says we support the drafting of this legislation, I don't know.
I mean, if you don't support it and they don't get support, no one's gonna work to get it through, right? So then you're kind of stuck doing nothing.
Right. So once again, are you offering an amendment or are you just making a comment?
I would support the second motion personally, so I'm fine with just supporting the legislation as it is and commenting on during the comment
Well,
period.
but again, I don't mean to be a stickler here, but the motion right now is a motion for the board to draft a statement in support of HR 763. Is that
Which the board would then have to adopt.
what we'd have to adopt? So all we're doing is agreeing that we're gonna write something, and at some point later, we're gonna start to either debate over what exactly it says.
Yeah.
Well, I have one other comment. Tim, you and I have talked about this, and I've said it in public before. I can't vote my personal opinion. I don't believe that's my role. I see one other letter of support, and I've had two very vehement, don't sign a letter of support. I think that's an issue for me. I'm not convinced that I should take the role of voting my personal opinion when in fact I'm representing Aleppo Township. And you and I have talked about that.
Yes.
You know, I have to say on that same point, and I'm speaking directly to you, Mr. Kelly, and I'm speaking to the board as well, I've found this to be a fascinating couple weeks because it really has made me sort of do a little mental exercise over what I think my role as a township commissioner is and what I think the role of local government is and where I think this fits in. And I don't know that I even have any answers, but I think it's been an interesting thought process, an interesting exercise. So I hope you hear people, I mean, I hope, Mr. Kelly, that you can separate people's position on this from necessarily the way they vote, because I don't think that you have anybody up here that, well, I shouldn't speak on behalf of everybody. I should say, I can say for myself that where I vote on this is not necessarily in keeping with what I think personally about the issue. I just don't know exactly what our role is in all this.
No, I don't want to carry this too far, but I just spent 1,000 miles in a car, Tim, with a geologist from Alaska who used to be the head of environmental education for Governor Ridge many moons ago. One of the quotes we got in our travels was, "We tried trickle-down economics and it ended up in misery. So let's try trickle-down fees and create more misery." Tim, there are some concerns about the structure of this legislation. And the renewable industry is making tremendous strides without interference. And so my last statement would be the conclusion that we had amongst a group. Many people that I've discussed with would be more in favor of eliminating the subsidies to fossil fuel as opposed to giving the government more influence. Just comment.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just piggybacking on what Commissioner said, the people that I talked to, who I might add were pretty vocal, that I didn't hear them objecting to the form, fit, and function of the proposed statute, but I did hear very loudly their strong objection to building another government agency.
But this doesn't do that part. The existing government agencies, 4 of them, will be responsible for this, starting with EPA. It's in section 4 of the legislation. So it's not meant to expand government. If it had been that way, it wouldn't have gotten where it is.
Tim, I'm just vocalizing what the voters said.
I understand. I don't think that they have the right information. They haven't read the act. But that's,
A lot
I'll
of
stop.
problems
I'm
with
stopping.
Tim is that EPA doesn't read the act either, they just do what they feel like they want to do. And I say that at 40 years of law practice in that area.
All right, any other comments? Any other comments from the audience? All right, let's vote. The motion is a motion for the board to draft a statement in support of HR 763. Why don't we do a roll?
Who made this motion?
I did.
I'm still, okay,
Now, I seconded it.
okay,
A long time ago.
okay. I was
And once
lost
again, I
track
will
in
say
there.
that I believe I have to vote in favor of it because I made it. And I've got to do research into that. It's not clear in Robert's rules, but I believe I have to vote in favor of it. You do not. Second. Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please.
President Dobler,
Yes.
Vice President Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Dara,
No.
Commissioner DePlaga.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries 4-0, or 4-1, excuse me. And I suppose that then begs the question of who will be drafting the statement in support of HR 763. Tim, why don't you write something that you think would be appropriate? and
I
email
can
it to me?
do that, or I'll provide an example.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll get that out to Gwen immediately.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, old business C, emergency management refresher dates.
I spoke to Judy Haluka, and she agreed that it would be a good idea to have another mini session like the commissioners and staff had, that one Saturday session we had, where we come in and just get refreshed on our roles and flip through the binders again and just catch up again on emergency management. And she suggested possibly doing it before one of the July meetings, since everyone's gathered that date anyway, if it would be easy for everyone, rather than scheduling a new date, to just come in an hour or more earlier on one of those dates. Nominate. So that would be
I will
up
say
to
though
the
that,
4 of you.
That is a goal for the 2019 year. We had asked her to do that, to have that refresher.
So it's up to the commissioners. If you would prefer to have schedule a second
I'd
time,
like to do it on one of the meeting days.
you would.
Yeah,
Okay. So is it normally easy for everyone to come in about an hour or an hour and 15 minutes early?
Yeah, we get a reminder that day, that'd be great.
Okay, I will talk to Judy and see which date works best for her, and we'll get that scheduled.
You might want to remind her that you're going to need to have somebody do it for my roles. You have to rejigger those roles.
Yeah.
Okay, next, old business, property cleanup at 690 Glen Mitchell Road.
This is Norman Meaner's auto body garage, and the board voted last month to send a letter giving him 30 days to clean the property of tires and any materials that pose an environmental threat to the health and safety of the township residents. Mr. Meaner came in this morning to talk to me. Sent along a photo. He has a tire recycler coming tomorrow, so he has cleaned out all his tires, about 250, and the recycler is going to come tomorrow to pick them up. A couple other items that he mentioned.
Did he agree not to do that anymore?
No, he normally waits until he has about 200 tires before calling the recycler because he gets a better price at larger quantities. So he holds them rather than have them come pick them up individually. And he said that he is an auto body shop, so he goes through, has a lot of tires that he does accumulate. So that's how he schedules that. He said he will forward a copy of the documentation to me after they're picked up. As far as other environmental threats that the letter mentioned, he said he burns waste oil, he recycles thinner, he has a booth for spray painting that is regulated by the Allegheny County Air Quality Division, and he would be open to planting a few trees to provide further screening up near the top of the hill.
Is that site paved, or is it gravel? Is it
I do not
pervious
know.
or impervious?
I do not know the answer to that.
What's the question?
I asked if the site was pervious or impervious, or if they had areas that were paved.
No knowledge.
Okay, so the question is, what do we do at this point? Is that
The time is, the 30 days are now here. So I feel confident that's why he came in to talk to me, to explain what he was doing and to give an update. So now,
And
what?
my understanding was that really the tires were the primary environmental concern. Do I have that right?
I know that they come up, a lot as far as stockpiling tires, and he did explain his recycling schedule for tires.
Well, and the liquids too, back to your impervious or not. I think his statements and how he treats the liquids is also good.
I don't know about burning waste oil.
I'm sure that's in a,
I think it should be
I don't
disposed of
think
by a
it's-
hauler with a
he
manifest.
might be using it
Depends on
as,
how much he has.
he might be using it as fuel. That
Yeah.
would be my,
I think he,
What?
I think,
But all that,
he can burn it
it's all,
as fuel.
it's motor oil, it's all gonna have heavy metals in it, it's gonna
Right.
be burned.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure I would have said that. I would say, in my personal opinion, is, was he cooperative with you?
very, very.
My personal opinion is it's significant action in a positive direction.
And he did say that he's easy to get along with, and next time if anybody has a concern, just pick up the phone and call him, and he would be happy to address
Well, now,
it.
wait.
So I'm repeating what he said to me.
Okay, but let's just make a clear record that we have sent agents to speak to him, correct? And they have not gotten a response, so. the
This is an
idea-
ongoing and repetitive event.
The idea that all we need to do is pick up the phone and we're gonna get action is not entirely in keeping with my understanding of the history.
So maybe a letter documenting what he told you verbally and committing him to future compliance.
With DEP, I mean, who are we talking about?
I can't really speak to that.
If he's grandfathered, I mean, the lawyers here might know, if he's grandfathered, does he have to comply with these DEP standards for a site like
There
his
is no
operation?
grandfathering in
The land use is grandfathered, right, or he is?
the, well, that might be a local land use grandfathering, but for DEP requirements, if you're required to have, let's say,
A license, a license.
well, a permit to accumulate and store tires on your property before you to do that legally, that's a DEP rule, it could be imposed retroactively.
Okay. My concern is if he's not doing things properly, and to have someone from the state just go in there and look. They can make recommendations to him on how to do things properly if he's not, and if he is, then he won't get any sort of notice. I'm sorry, Georgia. That's the way I feel about it.
That's a legit position.
Well, so are you making a motion to that effect?
If I made a motion, yeah, I'll make a motion. I would like to ask the DEP we contact the DEP to conduct a site inspection to make sure he's in compliance with all DEP permits, housekeeping rules.
So what I've written down here is motion to contact the DEP to ask them to make a site inspection of 690 Glen Mitchell Road.
Yes.
Is there a second? I'll second that. So there's a motion and a second. I will also make a motion, is there any further discussion with respect to that main motion?
No.
I'll make a motion to defer that for 1 week.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the subsidiary motion to defer for 1 week. Is there any further comment on the subsidiary motion? Hearing none, let's vote on the subsidiary motion to defer for 1 week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. Thank you.
Would we consider notifying Mr. Meaner that we are involving the DEP?
Well, that's what the letter that we already sent said, didn't it?
It did say that.
Hmm?
It said, the letter that we sent, at the April 15th, 2019 Board of Commissioners meeting, the board voted to give you 30 days to clean your property of tires and any materials that pose an environmental threat to the health and safety of township residents. This letter notifies you that if the property is not sufficiently cleared of these items by June 8th, 2019, the township will proceed with contacting the DEP regarding the tires and other potential hazards at your property.
So Michelle, what are your specific concerns that would cause you to want the DEP to be there?
Well, unless our code enforcement officer knows housekeeping for chemicals and automobile
Okay.
repair shops, then I think we're under capacity.
So you want expertise?
I want expertise. I want the state to just look at it. If he's doing everything correctly, then he's fine. If he's not, they're gonna make recommendations to him. They usually give a warning,
So in line with Commissioner
and then he has
Williams?
time to comply.
Yeah.
Correct, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
So
And
in
then
line,
yeah.
in line with Commissioner Williams, I would feel more comfortable if we advised him of the action we just took.
Yeah.
To tell him that
This is a
to
tiny
ensure with a level of expertise beyond ours,
Mhm.
the DEP will be asked to come to your site. I think it's only fair to notify him.
Yes.
Sure.
The letter that we wrote to him in the first place, was saying that if he doesn't do something, something else is gonna happen.
And my suspicion is he believes he has complied with that request.
Right, and now we're saying, well,
I think you might say in notifying him that we're asking DEP to go out to confirm that the actions that he has taken,
Yeah.
documented to Gwen, are sufficient to meet all applicable requirements.
Yes.
I love that.
That sounds good, Dan.
So when you prepare a letter that looks like that, bring it to us. Don't send it, bring it to us next week and have us take a look at it.
Yes.
That's
Perfect.
sufficient? Okay, we will talk about that again next week. Thank you. Any other old business? Okay, turning to new business. Zoning Hearing Board Letter of Interest.
In your packet, you have an email from a resident who was interested in serving on the zoning hearing board.
And we have one vacancy there?
Correct. It's a 3-person board, and there's one vacancy.
Has anybody from the zoning hearing board met this person?
He attended the most recent zoning hearing board as a resident because it was an issue right near his house. And so he attended the meeting, spoke, watched the proceedings, and expressed an interest at the end of that meeting when he learned that there was an open seat.
Okay, well. My fingers are ready for a motion if anybody wants to make one.
Why don't we invite him in to make a little presentation on behalf of himself next meeting?
Sure.
All right. Then I hear no action with respect to that. We'll see you next week and we'll go from there. Anybody else have new business?
I have a report from the authority, but it should be an executive session.
Okay. Citizen participation. Yes,
I would like,
step up. Start with your name and address, please.
I'm Lori Weber. I'm Glenn Weber's sister and power of attorney. And I've come here today to address the complaints that made by Tom Jervy regarding my brother. I disagree with Tom referring to Glenn as his neighbor due to the fact that he cannot see his home. There's about an acre between them of dense woods. There's about 3 other neighbors that can see clearly into my brother's lot. Nevertheless, what I heard in the April 15th meeting was disturbing to me. I heard reports from Gwen of recent inspections by Jeff Frazier and Duquesne Light finding no violations on his property. But that was followed by a few people suggesting how the township can find a solution to the concern despite no violations. I heard Mr. Dobler say that this matter is making him crazy. And my question is, what is the matter? What solution to the concern are you looking for? And why do we need a second opinion, as it was suggested at the meeting? I actually have a solution to suggest, but first I want to give you some information. I'm a licensed real estate broker in Pennsylvania, and as such I have skills for assessing properties. I personally inspect Glenn's property on a regular basis. The most recent visit was about a week ago. I found his roof to be watertight, his basement to be dry, the plumbing functioning properly, as well as the electric. There are no pests, including the hypothesized rodents that some member presented at that meeting. I have never seen rodents at that property. A few summers ago, Jeff Frazier walked the property with me. He found it free of any violations, but asked me if I could help Glenn remove some brush around the property. When my brother was hospitalized due to an illness, I asked the fire department if I could burn some of that brush. They instructed me that I was permitted as long as it was contained and it was so many feet from the building. So my friend and I conducted that burn and got rid of some of it. And when my brother returned, he tried to do the same thing. As we all know, got carried away, the fire department was called, and they had to help him. Okay. Mistakes happen. Other people have done that. He's not the first. He was cited, he was traumatized by this whole experience, and I assure you he won't be burning anything in the future. Tom Jervy mentioned that Glenn removed a few trees that were just over his property line. I'm sure Glenn was not aware that the trees were a few feet over his property line when that happened, but he thought they would be a threat to his house, and that's why that happened. I have a solution to this issue. I offered it to Tom and Renee back then, and now I have a local nursery that heard about the complaint and agreed to donate 3 white pine evergreens to install where the trees were cut down. I wanted to give you a little bit of history about Glenn. I'm sorry, I'm emotional about this. My brother has 2 master's degrees and a PhD. He was born and raised here. Before becoming 100% disabled, he used to work with Down syndrome children. He loved these children, and he contributed a lot to their welfare. Glenn is entitled to live here like he has for 25 years and be happy and peaceful. May I suggest that the solution you're looking for is love thy neighbor as thyself. What about a little help? Speaking of that, his immediate neighbor, who can see clearly into his backyard, David Sad, offered to help when he needed his electrical pole installed. Emily and David love Glenn. They have no problem with his home, and they can see right into his yard. In fact, it was David and his brother that helped put up the pole. They donated their time and effort. When that was happening, Tom Jervy stopped by and asked David, "Why are you doing this? Why are you helping this man?" And David replied, "Because everyone has the right to live where they wish. And may I suggest a solution is to adopt that attitude of that kind neighbor." I'd also like to add this proverb: "There, but for the grace of God, go I." Imagine your son has this disability. I would think you would want the community to be compassionate. Trust me, you would want to see that compassion. I'm also a home health RN. I'm blessed to take care of a local man who is a quadriplegic. He is lucky in a way. He has a popular disability. People love to help those that suffer physical disabilities. Fundraisers and a local man paid for his elevator and provided him with many things he needed. He is truly blessed. I hope in the future we will treat all disabilities with equal compassionate community involvement. I will end by letting you know that I have a local plumber that is donating to connect him to the sewer. This will be done hopefully in the next few weeks. I will continue to monitor him and help him, like I have for 25 years here, to keep his home safe. He and his property are of no threat to any neighbor or Aleppo Township. He loves his home of 25 years and deserves to continue living in peace.
I'd like to comment, Mrs. Weber, Miss Weber? Miss Weber, I do not think anyone on this board has any lack of compassion for people with disabilities, myself included. I think we are very compassionate. However, we need to look out for our residents as well as the neighboring residents. We do have rules in our township. So I am the caretaker and sole parent of a disabled child, and I advocate for my child on a regular basis. When my child has done some things that were problematic, I got him help. If that was my son living in that house, I would make sure he's very well taken care of. And I would also make sure that he's following all our codes and keeping his lawn mowed, keeping his house in order. So we need to also be respectful of issues with the building, issues with the way it's being maintained, and issues with our code. So I have no lack of compassion for your brother. I totally understand your position, but it must be very difficult. But if he needs more help and you're his POA, I suggest you get more people in there to help him and to get his building up to standards under our code.
It is up to standards under their code.
We do not believe it's not.
Well, I know you don't believe it's not.
Well, there's large sheets of metal on the roof that looked like a fire hazard to me. And I've driven by it and looked at it myself. The yard is very overgrown. So
Well,
I
the
think
yard can be
if you
taken
are
care
taking care of him, I think
Yeah.
it's your responsibility to get some more people in there to help him.
Well,
And that's
the
all I
building
have to
is,
say on the matter.
and that's fine. The building is up to code. The roof is fine. It's not a fire hazard.
I've never seen someone put large sheets of plywood and metal on top of their roof and call that safe. If there is a fire, I cannot imagine how firemen could get in there if that thing collapsed.
There's no plywood on his roof,
There are large sheets of something that is on top of his roof.
which is roofing material that I helped him put up years ago. It's roofing material.
It's not a proper roof. It does not look to be. I'm surprised that passed.
Well, Ms. Weber, can I ask you a question? Because I appreciate you coming here, I appreciate your emotional statements, and I know that that's a difficult thing to do, and I appreciate you doing that. I'm sure it's caring for your brother, I'm sure, is difficult, and I appreciate you doing that as well. I just want to make sure that you see things from our perspective as well. And I want to make sure that you understand that we have a resident who is a very vocal complainant about your brother. And I know you say that the fire is a mistake and that could happen to anybody and that won't happen again. But from my perspective, when I've had complaints for a year or multiple years about this property, since the trees were cut down, since we've received complaints, multiple complaints, that's what makes me crazy, is that we try to get around this and we just keep getting complaints. And then when the subsequent fire happens, I get very concerned that if something else happens again in the future, that we would have liability. We are on notice of a problem. Our resident says that we're not taking action with respect to that problem. And then there's an incident. What happens if there's another incident? And I know you say there won't be, but I don't know that I can, frankly, sleep well at night with that confidence that nothing else is going to happen. And so I just want to make sure you see it from our point of view, and you don't have to agree with it. I just want you to know that my concern is that, I was a prosecutor for many years in New York City, and the thing that kept us up at night all the time was the idea of what happens if you have notice of somebody that breaks rules, you don't do anything about it, and that person breaks another rule in the future. And then everybody will come and say, you knew about this and you took no action. You were responsible for this. God forbid, what if the next time the fire does get out of control and it hurts somebody? And people come back and say to us, you knew that this was a problem, and you didn't do anything about it. I just don't know how we can have that knowledge and just be totally dismissive of it. And I don't think it's just about trees anymore. I mean, I think the trees, the idea of the trees, that would have been a helpful suggestion 2 years ago when the issue was only the trees. But now, unfortunately, we can't just erase the fire and pretend like it didn't happen, because it did. So I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do from here on. And I really don't. And that's what makes me crazy, is that and you can believe me or you cannot believe me, but Gwen and I have talked about this issue for hours and hours and hours, beyond what you see on the recordings. We sit here and we talk about this issue over and over and over again, and we have said to each other, it's very important that we respect your brother's rights, and the complainant is not the only person who has rights. Your brother has rights as well. And we wrestle with how we're going to deal with the situation in a way that is fair to everybody and respects everybody's rights. And I don't know the easy answer to that. I don't think there is an easy answer to that. I don't know the hard answer to that. I don't know what to do. And I'm glad that you come in to help us, to inform us and let us see another view of it, because I think that's important, and I don't know that we've gotten that up until tonight, and I'm grateful for that. But I think there is something that needs, I don't know how we can just pretend like the fire didn't happen.
Have you and your brother ever had an opportunity to sit down with the Jarvies?
This is a 25-year problem with them. And I hate to tell you.
I'm sorry, can I have you come up with the microphone?
I hate I really would rather not even speak about that, because I have very strong opinions
But it's the
of
crux.
how he's been treated.
It's the crux of the issue.
Well, and if you want me to be honest, I feel that they don't like my brother living there, period. They never have,
So back to my original question,
and that's being liked.
to my original question, have you ever had the opportunity to sit down with them?
I have. 2 years ago when we were updating the electric. Yeah. They weren't reasonable people.
So I can assume progress wasn't made.
No. I had a face-to-face conversation with Renee, and Tom just goes by and gruffs and huffs, and it's clear they just don't like him being there, and he's going to use any excuse to try to hurt him. Any excuse. The fire is an excuse. The trees, any excuse. And that's why I'm here. Because he doesn't have a problem with his immediate neighbors. They like him. They don't care what his house looks like. He has hurt nobody. He harms nobody. He stays in his house. He doesn't harm anybody. He just wants to be alone and feel safe and not be picked on. You know, unfortunately, the stereotype of his disability is that you have to be afraid of him, but it's the opposite. You know, he's been bullied. He went to a parade one time and a bunch of thugs beat him up. That's our society. It's very prejudiced against people with his disability, unfortunately. It's because of our lack of education on the matter, in my opinion.
I think there is help for your brother. I just think it's gonna take work and effort by his family members to advocate for him and to get him more services in there. If he rejects any type of help, it doesn't help us either.
My brother has been fine for 25 years. He doesn't require any other help, him personally with his disability. He is intelligent, he knows how to take care of himself, and he knows how to maintain his home. He doesn't have garbage in his home is clean. He's very fastidious about his cleanliness. And that's what upset me when I saw what was being said about his home. And oh my God, he might have rodents in there. He might have this because it looks funny to us. And that's my argument. Okay, his house doesn't look pretty and you might not want to live in his house, but he likes it. He's happy there. He feels safe there.
Well, there are resources out there for your brother and for you if you're willing to try and
it's-
get more help for him.
Yeah,
And you
it's
can
not that
advocate
easy.
and
Your
you can-
resources, it's not that
I
easy.
know,
Yeah.
personally, and I just keep advocating till I get things
Yeah.
for
Well,
my family.
well, he doesn't
So,
really need any resources. His health
he could
is
use some
fine.
help with his property. So-
Well, and that's,
And can you-
you know,
maybe
and I'm
you can
happy
work
to
on
do
that.
that. I'm
Okay,
happy
that
to
would be
get
great.
trees
Thank you.
planted, a landscaper there, you know.
Well, would you be willing to let us have, I mean, you know, you're saying that it's fine because you've seen the inside of it. Those of us that have only seen the outside have only seen the outside. And I know that Mr. Frazier has been there. We have our own, I mean, that's a separate conversation, right, Mr. Frazier. So we come back to the idea of a second opinion. Would you be willing to let us have another building inspector come through?
I was going to get an independent engineer out there to have it inspected.
Okay, well, we've been in touch with another building inspector who is the building inspector for for a neighboring municipality. And am I speaking out of turn here, Gwen?
And what is the purpose of that?
Well, to give us confidence that the building is safe.
Why isn't Jeff Frazier's opinion gives you confidence? What's the need for a second opinion?
Because it doesn't. I can't explain why, because it doesn't. I'm not confident in Jeff Frazier's opinion.
Hmm.
I'm not confident. I drove by it, I looked at it, I looked at the yard. It is not, to me, it does not appear to be up to standards, so.
To me, it appears to be not unlike several Aleppo Township yards. I'd be happy to take a drive with you one day and,
Yeah, and we have code
Point that out.
enforcement for those, that
Well,
as well.
that gets
so.
back to that gets back to my, frankly, well, I don't want to get into discussion about code enforcement and our code enforcement officer. But again, I ask you, if you are so confident, and maybe you're right, I hope you're right, but if you are so confident in the state of this house, would you permit us to have a second code enforcement officer come inspect?
Unfortunately, I cannot permit you.
But you're the
because he
power of
owns the-
attorney.
I know, but he owns the home, and he has to permit that person to come in.
That's not
I
correct.
can't force him to do it. I can't force him to do it.
Do you have general power of attorney?
I do,
Okay.
but I can't force him to do something. My power of attorney is in emergency situations where he can't advocate for himself, but he can advocate for himself.
Okay. Well,
It's not as easy as that. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. That's why I watch out and make sure everything is proper in there. So
you will not permit us to have
it's not up to me to permit you to do that. He can make decisions like that.
will you encourage him to
Of course,
Okay,
of course. I encourage him to do all kinds of things. But ultimately, it's his decision.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I think that would help. I think that would help. If we could say to the complaining residents, we've had a second code enforcement officer go through that house, and that code enforcement officer concurs with Mr. Frazier,
Okay, well, we'll see what we can do there.
that would make me feel better.
But I don't know any other resident besides the Jervys that are complaining.
I don't know that that's relevant. You
I
have a
think it is
complaint-
relevant. I think
I have a
there is a
complaining
situation here that goes above and beyond what we're talking about.
I'm glad that your presentation is now on YouTube forever. And I hope that, no, I'm glad. And I hope that all the neighbors hear it. Because again, just like I said, I would wish that it could be resolved amongst neighbors.
Yeah, and the neighbors that, like I said, could see into his property have no problem with
I
it.
hope they hear this conversation. And yet at the same time, I know that Commissioner Dobler is correct. Once we are notified, we have a liability. We have to do our best to come to the best
So everybody
answer
that
we
had
can.
an out-of-handled fire is being treated the same way.
I've never
Correct.
seen another one of those in my term here.
And your term here has been
6 years.
6 years. Okay, he's been here 25 years. I
It was a
probably could
very,
go to the fire department
it
and
was a-
ask them.
I wasn't here. I
Yeah.
can't speak to what happened
it
before.
was a
Yeah.
very windy day. There was not a good judgment. It was an accident, but,
No, but the point
It
I'm
is
trying to make is,
concerning.
as long as everybody in history who had an issue like this as being treated the same way, that's fine. That's the point I'm making.
Again, you know, we come back to one of the things that we said in the earlier presentation, that I find this an interesting conversation because it forces me to ask what role local government is supposed to play. We've had a conversation many times in the past about if there's a private dispute between two residents, do we get involved in that? And typically the answer is no. The answer is no. We are not here to mediate private disputes. We are here to mediate health and safety. Can I finish, please?
Yeah.
We're here to mediate health and safety disputes. We're here to mediate concerns about meeting the building code, meeting our building code. And if those things are satisfied, if the building is safe, and if there's no health and safety concern, then it's a private dispute. And I'd be happy to say that to the Jarvis,
Well,
if that's the case.
My point is, it's a private dispute that he's beat the drum in trying to turn it into something else. That's my point.
Well, all due respect, a fire that's set is a pretty good health and safety concern. I mean, if
And
you
he-
think that's him
I
spinning
agree.
something,
And
That's
he
a
was
successful
cited, and
spin.
it has nothing to do with anything else. It's a situation in itself. And I feel like this is being used as an excuse because of a long-term disgruntled neighbor that doesn't like him.
well, if he's a
living there.
long-term disgruntled neighbor that doesn't like his neighbor, he scored a big feather in his cap when there was a fire that was set.
Well, when I spoke to the other neighbor who witnessed the fire, she she didn't feel the same way. And she did tell me that he went, how did she put it? Unusually crazy, and we had to calm him down. Nobody else was acting that way.
He being who?
Jerry. She said, we had to calm him down. It was like a demonstrative act. And I'm sorry, I do feel like my brother is being persecuted here. Okay.
I personally, I feel for you and your brother, and I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
We just have certain things we need to do.
I
for the
understand.
township.
And I'm here to protect and defend him, and I'll do it till the cows come home. Because
Yeah.
this is his home, and this is where he's gonna stay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Citizen participation? Yes, sir.
She's leaving. I happened to attend that fire as a nosy neighbor, no other reason. Had it been, and I have no issue with Glenn, I'll say that up front, but had it been a windy day, that could have been disastrous. There's woods all around it, there's homes around it. It was not windy, we were talking about that there. Good thing it's not windy today, because that thing would have gone, man. The only other thing, I may not be in attendance next week, so I want to thank you personally for, in case I don't see you, for all your work, for bringing Aleppo into the 21st century with all your technology, the emails, the emergency management, the YouTube. Really appreciate it all. Never lived in a better place, and you're all great, but I thank you especially, and I wish you all the luck in the world in your future endeavors.
Great, thanks very much. I appreciate that.
All right, shake your hand, and then I'll sit down like that.
All right. Thanks, Don.
Thank you, man.
All right, anybody else? Citizen participation, can't beat that, huh? Okay. We are going to go into an executive session.
No,
Only if
Oh.
Dan has a report. My reason for an executive session is no longer valid this evening.
You have an executive session you want to go
Did
to?
you want to do that
week?
next week? You said something about the authority.
Right, I want to update folks so they can think about it when we may have to talk about it next week.
Okay, so we're going to go into an executive session to discuss potential litigation.
Yes.
We will stop the video now. We will not continue the video when we come back from the executive session. So for those people who are watching at home, consider this to be the end, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.